You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P. Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USA bobsledder Olympian Hunter Church. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started into the sport of bobsledding?
Well, I'm a little bit more rare because I'm a third generation bobsledder. So my great uncle slid in the 1940s. My dad slid in the 1980s. So I think my dad just wanted me to try bobsled. I don't think I ever really knew I wanted to become a bobsledder, but as soon as I took my first run, I knew I was meant to be a bobsledder.
How did you know that you wanted to get into the sport of bobsledding?
I think again, a lot of that had to do with my dad and his drive. He fell short of making an Olympic team, and he was one of my biggest supporters along the journey. So he was like, "Hey, I think you should just try this sport. It really changed my life, my outlook on, just how I approach things in everyday life." So I kind of followed in his footsteps.
How's that like following in the family legacy and legions to become a bobsledder for US?
Very unique. I mean, there's not many, multi-generational families of bobsledders. So for me to be able to follow in the footsteps of my family is very unique, but also to be the first of my family to go to an Olympic Games was even more special.
What was that experience like, as you said, being the first in your family to attend an Olympic game?
It was unreal. It was, not just my hard work and dedication that I put in to make my first Olympic team, but it was, their hard work that they put in, just kind of coming full circle. So, their love and passion for the sport, clearly affected my desire to do it, and to be able to be the first of the family to kind of close out that legacy was special.
How was that feeling like when you did make the national team for Team USA bobsledding?
It was, to be honest, it was kind of like a long time coming. By the time I made my first national team, it had been a few years already that I had been sliding and competing. So once I finally made it, it was really special. I was really grateful and appreciative, but it was also a reminder that the work wasn't over. This was only another step in the journey.
How was it like in 2016 competing in Calgary in the North American Cup?
So that was tough. That was one of my first ever races, or I think my second time ever going to Calgary, which was a really tough track for me initially. And I was young. I think I was 19 years old. So unique. Um, I didn't do as well as I would have liked to. I think that's part of being a competitor. And by the time I left Calgary that year, I was still a self-funded athlete. I think I left with $20 to my name, so I had enough money to pay for my bag back home, and that was about it. But Calgary's a beautiful area. It's such a fun track. It really, throughout my career grew on me, and I wish it was still back on the circuit.
Of course, what was it like going to Whistler in 2017 for your first World Cup?
That was really special. Whistler had a unique spot in my heart. That still is probably one of my favorite tracks in the world. And when I got named to come do the World Cup in Whistler, again, it was a very unique opportunity because it was going to be my first time ever on the international stage, and to kind of see what it was like going against all that other competition. And I knew I wasn't going to go there to win. It was more so to gain the experience. Um, but I had a blast. It was again a lot of fun. That was the race where the speed record was broken, and then I was back there just a few short years later when the speed record ended up being broken again. So,
How was your experience like traveling to Lake Placid and winning the gold for the North American in 2017?
so that was huge, and primarily because that gold medal is what sent our third sled to the Olympics for the 2018 Winter Olympic Games. So that was one of the most special moments of my life, especially just the bond I had with my team, and just knowing that, hey, we pretty much just have to not crash, and four guys get to go to the Olympic Games, and there were, at the time, it was a toss up. It could have been one of us. So it was like a mixed emotions by the end of the race where we won. We had done this unbelievable thing, but then there was the realization that some of us, that was the end of the road.
Of course, as you talked about that, what was that like when you didn't make the Olympic team for the first time?
It was heartbreaking, because as a competitor, it's confusing to have somebody tell you that they don't think you're the best option to do something. And of course, again, that competitive nature, you're driven by the fact that you want to be and you consider yourself one of the best. So it was incredibly tough. I had to really look inward to find my desire to continue to go for another 4 years after that. But looking back now as a more mature athlete, it was the necessary move for the betterment of the country and the team.
How did you take that and to help you to become a pilot in 2019 and compete in the North American Cup?
So I initially had, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I wanted to come back and prove that I was meant to be one of the guys competing at the Olympic Games. So I was hoping to make that my breakout year on that 2019 America's Cup. Well, I was hoping to be on the World Cup, but I put so much pressure on myself, and I ended up just missing the national team by 300 seconds or 300ths of a second that fall, and I ended up on the North America's Cup. So really, at that point, it felt like more a step back in my career, but an opportunity to really gain some valuable leadership skills and team building skills. And I think that's ultimately what helped me hone in for the remainder of that 2022 quadrennial.
What was your experience like getting to compete on the World Cup level?
It was a dream come true at that point. Being on the World Cup was a dream come true. Getting all the gear and being in the best top of the line sleds that the United States could offer. Going to all these tracks that I had watched people compete on since I was 11 years old. So it was honestly just at that point in my life a dream come true. It was, finally the hard work was coming to fruition. But then all of a sudden we were doing pretty well on top of that. So it made it that much more unique.
What was your experience like becoming a pilot and getting to race in a two-man sled versus a four-man sled?
The preparation for a four-man race is more only because there's more individuals involved and it's more of a choreography on ice. At that point, you have four large men trying to load into a bathtub that's eventually going to go 90 miles an hour. When two-man is just two guys, and again, they both involve a significant amount of work, especially to have the best start possible. So in two-man, um, you know, if you're off by just the tiniest bit, one guy's hitting the sled before the other guy, your push time is going to be slow, and you pretty much can already count yourself out of the race. Where in four-man, one guy, yeah, he might be able to be a little bit off and get away with it if he's super fast. And then also it's more of a team effort. It's more of this team aspect. Two-man, it's just me and the guy next to me, but in four-man, there's more of this camaraderie that ends up building. So, but for driving, at the end of the day, they're pretty much the same line. So hopefully you're as close as possible between the two, so that once you jump in between sleds, between races, it's seamless.
How was it like preparing and training for your first Olympics?
So for training for my first Olympics, of course, it was hard. It was vigorous work for hours over the summer. Hours every day, beating up your body, injuries. Putting yourself through financial burden just to be able to make it there. But for my first run at the Olympics, there was nothing that could prepare me for that. That was again like an unreal moment and a true realization. Like, holy smokes, I'm at the Olympic Games now. And I tell people that I was nervous for the races. I think I was most nervous for my first official training run.
What was that feeling like when you did make the Olympics in 2020 to go to Beijing?
It was it was amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. There, with my family, it was their hard work and sacrifice. All the shared sweat and tears that we've put into this journey. So it was a relief in a lot of ways, but also it was bittersweet because there was a lot of people. For just as many people that make the Olympic team, there's double the amount that don't, and it's never easy to see people who deserved it just as much as you, um, not being able to live out their dreams also. So, a lot of ways, it was an amazing moment. I'll never forget that phone call and the lost sleep the night before the team was named. But um, on the same hand, I'll remember the somber tone in the hotel lobby following, just knowing that, there some of your good friends weren't going to be there with you.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you did get that phone call and you knew that now you can continue the family legacy of becoming an Olympian?
Again, I think I related a little bit to when I was named to the national team. There was a sense of urgency where now the work was, really beginning. And yes, we made the Olympic team, but this didn't mean it was time to go party and, just forget about all the training we had put forth. It was time to figure out how we can gain an advantage once we got there. So it was amazing. It was a quick moment of relief and excitement, but also followed by just being on your toes and ready to go for what was to come.
Of course, when you did get announced, what was that training like afterwards, preparing to go to Beijing?
So we flew home to the United States. We went to Chula Vista, California, where one of the Olympic training sites are. And really, we just trained smart. We were trying to do everything that we could. Like a small overreach block in our training cycle, where we were trying to feel a little bit of that heavier load before we had to be ready to be explosive, for the races the following week or the following 2 weeks. So, um, but yeah, it was a lot of just making sure that your body was preserved, everything was firing the way that it was supposed to fire, and just not getting hurt was the real kicker for a lot of us. And of course, not catching COVID. So that was like a whole other aspect of training that most of us weren't used to, was how do we train ourselves to, not get COVID, even if we're doing everything that we're supposed to do. So
What was that feeling like for you when you got your Olympic gear in the mail and you were able to go to Beijing?
the gear was probably one of the coolest parts of the experience. I'm not gonna lie. We flew to LA before we took our direct flight to China, and they bring you into these fitted rooms where it's all Ralph Lauren and Nike, and they have like little stages, and they get you up on these little pedestals where they're measuring you and tailoring what your outfit is going to be for the opening ceremonies or potentially on the podium. So those were, that was really exciting. And then you're walking away with like thousands of dollars of gear and clothes. And for me, it's funny, I didn't really think about this. Like, leading up, the goal was, go to the Olympics for bobsled and win medals. But another dream outside of that, when I was a kid, my parents, they struggled financially growing up. They were just trying to find their way. They were young adults. And I always would get hand-me-down clothes from my cousins, or have to go to TJ Maxx to get that nice Hollister shirt. And I think as a kid, I always just wanted to have like some of the nicest clothes, the newest, best clothes. So getting that gear was kind of like, I guess, another weird side dream that became a reality. It was like, hey, I got the nicest clothes in the world right now. So that was pretty cool.
What were some of your favorite memories and moments competing in the Olympics at Beijing?
Well, honestly, one of my favorite moments was being able to see some of my teammates win medals. Getting to see Kaylee Humphreys go through her journey and come out with a gold medal, the first ever in monobob. My teammate Alana Myers Taylor, who is an absolute boss. She is one of the most inspirational athletes I think I've ever met in my life. And then her actually being there at the finish line when I made my last four-man heat, um, giving me a big hug and saying, "Hey, congratulations, you're finally an Olympian. It's official now. You finished the race." And just reminding her just how much you know her journey has meant to me as a young athlete. Those were some really special moments. And then, at the end of the day, just the experience of being in China with some people that I'll always consider my closest friends. And regardless of if we ever talk again, it was this camaraderie and this goal that we all had. We were just so fixated on it, and to be able to share that with other people that you really care about was super unique.
How was that experience like getting to learn from those two legends?
Unreal. It's a absolute honor. But I give them both a lot of credit for my success. One of my biggest idols growing up in the sport was Steve Holcomb, and I was too shy to ever really ask him for his advice on a lot of things. So to have Kaylee and Alana there, who are again two of the best drivers, men or women, that the sport has ever seen, to be willing to help me out and give me advice. Uh, it's unmatched. It's like, sitting there talking with Tom Brady or, Serena Williams and trying to get pointers before a match or a football game. So um, I was just so grateful for them, and still starstruck every time I get to see them. So
How did it feel to finally have Olympian behind your last name?
that was awesome. Being able to finally say I have Olympian behind my name was super unique, and again special, because it was something that I fought for a long time in my life. But on the same hand, it's an accolade, and for me, I think the thing that will live forever in my mind, in my legacy as an individual, is some of the things or some of the things I've experienced and some of the stories I've gained versus, the three letters that I get to tag at the end of my last name. So it means a lot, and it's something that I will forever carry with me for the rest of my life proudly. But it's only a small portion of the journey.
What does it mean to you to be a U.S. bobsledder?
To me, it means so much more than anything else I've ever done, because, and again, like any sport in the U.S., we're not wearing, my last name's not on the back of my speed suit when I go to race. It's the United States of America. So being an athlete for the United States of America in the sport of bobsled, where I have this, rich family history involved, it truly made me want to act like the representative that I felt the country and the sport deserved. So it completely changed who I was as a high schooler, as a young man, growing up in my 20s in the sport. It made me want to make everybody at home proud, and everybody else who wore the US of A on their back proud as well.
What is that feeling like when you get to go down the bobsled?
It's unlike any other feeling in the world. For me, it's a minute of zen in my day, where it doesn't matter if, you have girlfriend problems, you have money problems, you have family problems, what you stubbed your toe earlier, or your favorite football team lost. Who cares? Because in that moment, you're so hyper fixated on getting down to the bottom of the track as quickly and as safely as possible, you have no time to focus on anything else. So it's the best 1 minute of meditation you'll ever get throughout your day. And just as quickly as it's the best minute of meditation, it's one of the most chaotic, hectic, and scary moments of meditation you'll ever experience.
What is it like, obviously, competing with some of your teammates like Josh Williams, Kayla Love, and even Humphrey?
It's so getting to compete with them is humbling because I'm competing with the best athletes in the world, and I come from a small town. I never was like I was a good, football, track and field athlete maybe in school, but I wasn't the best. So now I'm quite literally competing with some of the best ever, some who were, Alana was one of the best softball players at the University of Georgia. I mean, Keisha was a really distinguished track and field athlete. Josh, a really good lacrosse player. So they're coming from these other walks of life where they were really good at. Now they're entering this, niche sport like bobsled. They're even greater at it. They're considered the best of all time. So for me, it's just humbling. Any chance I get to compete against them, and it's a reminder of, hey, especially with someone like Josh, he's on my sled. He's where he needs to be. I know he's where he needs to be. I need to work above my pay grade in order to make sure that I'm giving him everything that I can possibly give him to be successful going down the track too.
How's it been like, obviously, having those up and coming people like Riley Compton, Mallory, and even Elliot, and mentoring them into becoming Olympians and for the national team?
So I haven't had the chance to work with Elliot and Mallory, unfortunately yet. They came into the sport during a really busy Olympic year. I've worked with Riley, and she has a really bright future. She's an amazing driver. So for her, she just needs to continue to get as many runs as possible. And if I can help in any way, which I would love to, any athlete on the development team, one of my future goals is to become a coach. And so if there's any athletes who ever had a question pertaining to the sport, I jump all over it. It's like, it's more exciting for me to over explain one corner to them than for me to drive through that corner 100 times. So, if they're listening to this podcast, I encourage them to reach out to me because I will always be willing to help them.
How's it like, obviously, getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and now getting to sign the OLY?
So for me, the first autographs I ever signed was in Europe, which was very unique. In the US, bobsled isn't a very popular sport, and I wasn't really popular in the sport to begin with. So it was very unique to have people coming up to me at races and asking me to sign, 10 copies of a picture of me. Um, but, now that I've come home and yeah, again, most people in my area know me. I work within the school system at my local school here. And the kids love asking for autographs. It's adorable. They're like, please, can you sign my binder or my shirt or can you sign my forehead? And I'm like, no, I can't sign your forehead, but I'll absolutely sign like 100 pieces of paper for you because, it's not worth anything in reality. Like, it's not like they're going to be able to go sell my autograph for money, but for them in that moment, it means something to have somebody like me, I guess, who's, push the limits of what's capable in my small town, be hopefully an inspiration for them moving forward. So,
What was that feeling like, getting to put on the Olympic ring for the first time?
um, that was very cool because a lot of throughout my whole life, I've had people buy me, just thinking of me, hoodies or T-shirts that had the Olympic rings on it, and I quite literally put them into storage, and I never wore them. I never took them out. They sat in my closet. So for years, I remember, one of the first things I said to my significant other, I said, "Hey, now that hoodie that's in the closet that you keep wearing as a nightshirt, I can actually wear that when I go out for dinner or something now, or when I go out on town." So that was pretty cool. Definitely, earning that right and that distinction to be able to wear, these rings or this logo. That meant a lot.
What was that feeling like receiving the ring and having it put on your finger?
It was that I never thought I'd wear a ring. I mean, like other than a wedding ring, I never thought I'd wear a ring as like a means of jewelry or just showing a distinguishing accomplishment. So it's kind of like a Super Bowl ring. Actually have it over um in my dresser over there, but that was cool. Like I said, I never thought I'd wear a ring, and now I find myself wearing it a lot.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of bobsledding?
Well, so right now I'll be getting a surgery done in the middle of December, which will keep me out for the competitive season. And then depending upon how my recovery process goes through, that surgery, um, will kind of dictate my future. But no matter what, bobsled is ingrained in my blood. Again, I'm a third generation slider. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another church up there in the next 20 years or so. But for me, I think no matter what, over these next 4 years, I want to help everybody I can, see their dreams become a reality, whether that's me bringing brakemen on and going and winning more medals and going for an Olympic gold, or, hopefully coaching and bringing up the next generation of athletes in the sport. So, those are kind of my two paths at the moment, but they're both pretty good paths because they keep me involved in one of the best sports that there is.
How's it been like obviously living out your Olympic dream?
It's been there's like two sides to it. There's the part of me that is it's like, wow, I can't believe it was over so quick. And then there's the part of me that is also like, wow, there's some relief as well. Like that was so much work. That was such a taxing journey. Um, so, at the moment, I'm just grateful that you know, whoever the greater powers to be are allowed me to make it there. And for whatever intrinsic motivation I had kept me going and never allowed me to quit so that I could see that journey and that goal all the way through.
What advice would you give people that are looking to represent a national team and compete in bobsledding, whether it's Team USA or Canada?
Honestly, my biggest so first of all, get in the front seat. If you don't want to get in the front seat, that's fine. I think brakeman, there's a lot of need for brakemen, but drivers, you ultimately control your destiny. I mean, quite literally, you're the one who's piloting the sled down to the bottom of the track. So, for me, I'd say get in the front seat, give as much effort as you can to become as proficient as possible. Don't give up. The sport is one of the most brutally rewarding sports in the world, and you're going to experience a lot more of those lows than the highs. But when you do get the high, it's like you're on top of a mountain. So, but never quit. Just keep pushing and understanding that it's all worth it for the goal at the end of the day.
What advice would you give those people that are competing in the Olympics for the first time or even multiple times?
Honestly, my biggest advice, and one that I wish I could go back and give myself, is have fun. I think you need to have the mentality that, hey, I want to win more than I want to breathe, for sure. But you also need to understand that you started this journey because in some way, shape, or form you enjoyed what you were doing, and you can never lose that aspect of you. And that fire that makes you wake up every day. Whether and some for some people that is going out there and just winning, but for the most part, it's being willing to jump into the back of a sled and putting your life at risk or putting your life in the hands of somebody else. So you got to remember why you're doing it, why it's fun, and I think that's what gives everybody that edge over their competition is they're having fun even though they may not be showing it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
So they can follow me at Hunter Church _ OLY on my Instagram, USA Bobsledder for Twitter. And then they can like my Facebook page, Hunter Church USA on Facebook.
Thank you again, Hunter Church, for your interview, and best of luck in your future in the sport of U.S. bobsledding.
Thank you, Brandon. Great show, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Hunter Church, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.